In 1994, a bizarre phenomenon occurred in Oakville, Washington, where gelatinous blobs fell from the sky, causing widespread illness and killing animals. The incident, which became known as the Oakville Blobs, remains one of the most unexplained events in recent history, with the blobs themselves still unidentified to this day. The people of Oakville were left stunned and frightened as they tried to make sense of the strange and terrifying event that had just occurred. As news of the incident spread, scientists and experts from around the world flocked to Oakville to investigate the mysterious blobs and determine their origin. Despite their best efforts, however, the truth behind the Oakville Blobs remains a mystery that continues to fascinate and intrigue people to this day. The town of Oakville is a small, rural community in Washington state, with a population of just a few hundred people. On that fateful day in 1994, the residents of Oakville were going about their daily business when suddenly, without warning, the sky turned dark and a strange, gelatinous substance began to fall from the air. The blobs, which were described as being clear or translucent, ranged in size from small droplets to large, gloopy masses, and they seemed to be everywhere, covering the streets, houses, and fields. The people of Oakville were shocked and terrified as they tried to understand what was happening, and many of them reported feeling sick and disoriented after coming into contact with the blobs. As the blobs continued to fall from the sky, the residents of Oakville were forced to take shelter indoors, where they waited anxiously for the mysterious substance to stop falling. The experience was traumatic for many of the residents, who were left to wonder if they would ever be able to return to their normal lives. You're watching Mind Blown, where we uncover the stories that defy explanation. The Oakville Blobs are a perfect example of such a story, a mystery that has puzzled scientists and residents alike for decades. As we delve deeper into the incident, we begin to uncover some truly bizarre facts. For example, when the blobs were examined, they were found to contain human white blood cells, but without nuclei, which is a characteristic that human white blood cells typically have. This raises more questions than answers, and it's a discovery that has left scientists scratching their heads. The presence of human white blood cells in the blobs suggests that they may have been of biological origin, but the fact that they lack nuclei is a mystery that has yet to be explained. As scientists continue to study the blobs, they are forced to consider the possibility that they may have been created in a laboratory, or that they may have originated from some unknown source. Here is where the story takes a turn for the even more bizarre. As the investigation into the Oakville Blobs continued, it became clear that the blobs were not just a natural phenomenon, but may have had a profound impact on the health and well-being of the people and animals that came into contact with them. Many of the residents of Oakville reported feeling ill after the incident, with symptoms ranging from nausea and dizziness to respiratory problems and skin irritation. Some animals that came into contact with the blobs even died, and the incident remains one of the most unusual and unexplained in recent history. The fact that the blobs seem to have a negative impact on the health of those who came into contact with them raises important questions about the potential risks and consequences of such an event. As scientists continue to study the blobs, they are forced to consider the possibility that they may have been some kind of biological agent designed to cause harm to humans and animals. The first known fall of the blobs happened on August 7, 1994, but what many people do not realize is that this was not a single isolated event. The gelatinous substance reportedly fell over Oakville a total of 6 times across a span of roughly 3 weeks. Each time, the material arrived during rainstorms, mixing with the water and blanketing the ground. Residents who thought the first fall was a freak occurrence were stunned when the blobs returned again and again, almost as if something or someone was deliberately dispersing the substance over the same small stretch of Grays Harbor County. The repeated nature of the falls made it much harder to dismiss the incident as a one-off weather anomaly and pushed local authorities to take the reports more seriously. One resident at the center of the story was a woman named Sunny Barclift. She lived on a farm outside Oakville and was among the first to physically handle the blobs after they landed on her property. Within hours of touching the substance, Barcliffe became violently ill, experiencing extreme fatigue, nausea, and vertigo. She was not the only one affected in her household. Her mother, Beverly Roberts, who was visiting at the time, also fell seriously ill and had to be hospitalized. On top of that, Barcliffe's cat, which had come into direct contact with the blobs outdoors, died shortly after the incident. Barcliffe later described the substance as soft and mushy, roughly half the size of grains of rice, and unlike anything she had ever seen fall from the sky. Seeking answers, Barcliffe asked a local physician named Dr. David Little to examine a sample of the blobs. Little worked at the Oakville Hospital and agreed to take a look under a microscope. What he found disturbed him. The sample appeared to contain cells, and when he sent it for further testing, the results came back showing the presence of white blood cells that lacked nuclei. Little publicly stated that in his years of medical practice, he had never encountered anything like it. He could not determine whether the cells were human in origin or from some other organism, and the discovery deepened the mystery rather than resolving it. The question on everyone's mind is, what were the Oakville Blobs, and where did they come from? The fact that they were found to contain human white blood cells, but without nuclei, suggests that they may have been some kind of biological agent. But what kind and where they came from remains a mystery. Theories persist, but none have been proven correct, and the incident remains one of the most unexplained in recent history. As we continue to search for answers, we are left with more questions, and the truth behind the Oakville Blobs remains a mystery that may never be fully explained. The incident has been the subject of much speculation and debate, with some theories suggesting that the blobs may have been of extraterrestrial origin, while others believe that they may have been some kind of military experiment gone wrong. Whatever the truth may be, the Oakville Blobs remain one of the most bizarre and unexplained incidents in recent history, and a reminder that there is still much that we do not understand about the world around us. Authorities did not ignore the incident entirely. Officer Tim Davis of the Oakville Police Department personally collected samples of the blobs and sent them off for analysis. A microbiologist named Mike McDowell at the Washington State Department of Health examined the material and reportedly identified 2 species of bacteria within it, Pseudomonas fluorescens and Enterobacter cloacae. Pseudomonas fluorescens is a bacterium commonly found in soil and water, while Enterobacter cloacae is associated with the human gut and can cause infections in people with weakened immune systems. The presence of these bacteria raised more questions than it answered, because neither species could explain how the substance ended up falling from the sky over a rural Washington town. The Washington State Department of Ecology was also contacted during the investigation. However, what happened next only fueled more suspicion. Several of the collected samples that had been stored for further analysis reportedly went missing. Residents and investigators who had carefully preserved portions of the blobs found that their samples had either been lost, taken, or somehow destroyed. The disappearance of this physical evidence made it nearly impossible for independent researchers to conduct their own tests, and it gave rise to allegations that someone was actively trying to suppress the findings. Without the original material to re-examine, scientists were left relying on the initial test results and eyewitness accounts alone. One of the most widely discussed theories about the Oakville Blobs centers on military activity in the Pacific Ocean. At the time of the incident, the United States Navy was conducting bombing exercises off the Washington coast. Some researchers have suggested that the military may have inadvertently bombed large colonies of jellyfish during these drills, pulverizing the marine creatures into a fine gelatinous mist that was then carried inland by weather patterns and deposited over Oakville during rainstorms. Proponents of this theory point out that jellyfish are largely composed of a translucent, gel-like substance that could plausibly resemble the blobs, and that the prevailing winds could have transported the material the roughly 50 miles from the coast to the town. The Navy, however, has never confirmed or denied this explanation. Another theory that gained traction suggested the blobs might have been a byproduct of atmospheric waste dumping by commercial aircraft. At the time, regulations around the disposal of lavatory waste from planes were a topic of public concern, and some Oakville residents speculated that the substance might have been released from an aircraft passing over the area. However, aviation waste is typically blue in color due to chemical disinfectants, and the Oakville blobs were described as clear or translucent with no odor consistent with chemical treatment. Investigators largely dismissed this theory, but it reflected the level of confusion and desperation that the community felt while searching for any rational explanation. The story of the Oakville blobs reached a national audience in 1997 when it was featured on the television show Unsolved Mysteries during its 9th season. The segment brought cameras to Oakville and interviewed residents including Sunny Barclift, who recounted her experience in detail on screen. The broadcast introduced millions of viewers across the country to the strange events of August 1994 and generated a flood of letters and calls from people who claimed to have witnessed similar phenomena in other parts of the world. The episode remains one of the most referenced segments in the show's long run, and it cemented the Oakville blobs as one of the signature unexplained events of the 1990s. In the decades since the Unsolved Mysteries broadcast, no definitive answer has emerged. The missing samples mean that modern forensic techniques, which have advanced enormously since 1994, cannot be applied to the original material. Oakville itself remains a quiet town in Grays Harbor County, but longtime residents still remember the weeks when a mysterious gel fell from the sky and their neighbors ended up in the hospital. The lack of a satisfying explanation has kept amateur researchers, podcasters, and documentary filmmakers returning to the story year after year, each hoping to be the one who finally cracks the case. What fell on Oakville in the summer of 1994 has never been identified, and the original evidence that might have provided the answer is gone. Subscribe to Mind Blown and hit the bell so you never miss a mystery. Drop your own theory about the Oakville blobs in the comments, and we will see you in the next one.